Hello everybody, today we are going to work in Lightroom and Photoshop. We're going to work with sliders to see how we can help make our images pop and give them more dynamic range and just improve on them. So we're going to start with this image in Lightroom. I'm going to the Develop module. First thing I'm going to do is go down and remove my chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. I like to do this at the beginning for one so I don't forget and to see if there's any subtle differences before I start. And then I'm going to go to split screen for you all. So on the left will be our reference image and what we've changed will be on the right. So you can see the differences. And we are going to work under basic. If you do not see basic open, you can anything under it, you can click on the arrow and it will open up and you'll see your white balance, exposure, contrast, and some other sliders. This is where we're going to work today. We're mostly going to work in highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. If you shoot in RAW, these are very important to use to help make your image come out and pop. If you work in JPEG, this has been somewhat done for you in camera, either on your iPhone or your regular camera if you're shooting JPEG. You can still use these with a JPEG. You just will not be able to have as much info as you would in a RAW to pull out. And so we are going to start here. I will start by taking my highlights down, usually somewhere around 80%, just a start spot. I can just click about where that is, and my shadows down about the same amount. And you can already see there's a difference. But since we took our highlights down, we want to take our whites up. We can click and drag is another way to move it, and we can just pull them up. I may take them up as much as, 19 or 20. It just depends, on how much, and you got to look and, see what looks right. And I'm going to take my blacks down about the same. You can also do it by typing. And if you do a negative symbol, if you're going down first, or it will go up, and you can see it does it for you that way. So just using those, we can already see a huge difference in this image. I can see part of the horse. I can see there's different colors. And this one is just a little darker because it was exposing for all the light colors. So we can just bring our exposure up a tiny bit, and we can play with it, get it to where we want. And now we have an image where we can see the horse and rider and everything is popping. The colors are popping more, even though I did not even touch saturation. The reds are redder and so forth. So that's all we're going to do on that image. Let's go to this image. And I meant to already make it black and white, but just want to show you how it works on black and white. So we'll go here and we'll make it black and white. And, you don't see much detail in the hair or anything. So with the white background, he's a little shaded. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our highlights down. I may go 100% on this one even because we want a lot of contrast when we do black and white. And I'll do my whites up even maybe a little bit more. Might even go up to, 28 since I went down so far, somewhere around there. We can add some contrast because you want a lot of, like I said, usually contrast is what you're looking for unless you're doing a low contrast image. And so we got, up that some. He's all standing out. We got a little bit of bright spots and a little bit of dark spots. They're small enough we could probably leave them, but if you want to take care of them, you can go up here to your brush tool or your masking. And I use the brush and masking. This is my favorite way of doing it just because I have more control and it's easier for me. And I may want to go just take care of those. Maybe I'll take the whites down in this area. And now those are gone. And I can make a new brush. And I can just take up the blacks in this area right there. And now they're gone without having to change everything else, which I already liked. So now that we got that done, and we see how sliders can work for us in different ways, let's go to the next one. Now this image, the sky looks pretty much blown out. There is a little bit of coloring in there. So if you happen to be still in a masking tool when you get to your next one, you just click on it and you'll go right back to your basic. I can take the exposure down. I can see, wow, I got a lot of sky in there I can work with. So let me take it back. If you double click on the slider bar, it will go back to 0. And I can say, well, let's take this sky down. And I may take it down. You got to watch because around that tree, I don't want it to get too dark. So I may do things a little different because I don't, in here I do not have erase, so I may take it only down so much, getting the sky back and shadows up because I didn't want all this to turn too dark. And I took the shadows up a little bit more because I was watching the highlights, but I'm going to do some more things with those highlights. So right here, and everything's already popping. I got some sky back. Everything's looking a lot better. But like I said, I wanted to take the sky down a little bit more. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can do sky, and then again, you don't get the erase tool. You can do subtract and add. But I think I'm going to use brush again, or you could use linear gradient from the side. But I'm just going to do this for speed, and I might take exposure down. I may take my shadows down a little bit, and I might even add a little saturation to start with. And then when I go up here and I paint in, I'm getting more of my sky back in, but I'm keeping off that little tree. And, I might need to make it a little smaller so I can get closer to the tree without really picking up the tree. I'm feathering, but I'm not getting as much of it. And we can just do like this. And as you can see, as I go over, it's picking up more as we go. And ta-da. And that's where I picked up. And so now I have a lot of sky back in here. I may even go in here a little bit more. I think back here still looks dark enough. I'm not too worried about it. You could if you want to, but then you're going to grab trees. So I can go to the erase and kind of take that back out too. Okay. So now, and like I said, since we got the erase tool, if we got too much into the sky and to these little trees, we got it feathered, so it's going to be softer, and we can take some out. You can keep the flow down to make sure you don't take too much out. And what else can I do this? It's already looking pretty good, but just to show, in some areas you may want to play with this even more than what we are right now. We can go back into our mask, create a new one. I'm going to do a brush again. And if I paint before I actually, um, I'm holding it down the whole time I'm doing this, or you can let go to get certain areas. Anyway, I'm just pretty much just touching all these little red spots on my tree and highlighting the area in the purple. You can change the color here. I got turned it purple because I knew this tree was already red and I wanted to be able to see it better. And you can do something like this. And when we got that painted, and as I say, you can go over here and I can turn exposure up, but even if I turn up exposure a little bit, I just don't like the whiteness it's going to get to it, see? So I'm going to go back to those same four that we used before, and maybe I'm just going to pop up shadows a little bit. And then since I did that, I might take the blacks down. You're not going to go as extreme as you did on the others. And right there, we got a little bit more. And then, we can come down here to saturation. You could, because they don't give vibrance in the masking tools. I don't know why. I'd rather use vibrance, but you do got saturation. I wouldn't do a lot because this is pretty vibrant already. I might, and saturated, but I may, give it a, we can go 5 or 6. Don't need to do much. And we can go down to texture, clarity, and dehaze, which are under, a little farther down, and they're under effects. Texture works on more the fine details. Fine texture is a sharpening tool. So if I go way up, it's going to be really crispy. If I go way down, it's going to be super soft. That's one tool we could use. Or we could use clarity, which is a pixel-based, um, and it works on your darks and brights. So again, I can go up on clarity and it gets pretty darn crispy, or down and gets super soft. Which, you can use some of these as Gaussian blur things too if you have masked area. So I may take the clarity up a tiny bit. Maybe, we could do the texture, maybe 1 or 2. We don't want to go overboard. And the dehaze, if I think we want just a little bit more midtone and highlights, dehaze works on your midtones and highlights. If you take it down, it will soften it in image to almost look dreamy, or all the way, makes it lighter and whiter, and it also takes clarity out of it. If you take it up, it can go to extreme darks on the thing. So, but if you want to just add a little bit more darkness, richness in there, you could take your dehaze up a little bit. So now our little tree is popping. We got a nice sky going on. What else we have? We have a leading line, so we might want to work on that a little bit to make it stand out just a little bit more. You don't want it to be the main subject, but it is a leading line, so you want it maybe to stand out some. So we can pick brush again. I may make the size a little bigger. And I don't want to just draw a line because then it'll be an even, lightening of it, what that whole area or sharpening. So I will do little clicks here and there, and where they overlap, there'll be different shades, and where it's feathered, they won't be all the same size. And as I go down, I might get to the back, I might make it a little smaller. I might not want to go too far back there because it might um, draw your eye too far back away from the tree. So there we have that. So what can we do? Again, exposure is not going to be my best choice. Even if I take it up a little bit's okay. You could get away with doing it that way, but if you go much more, it does not look right. But if I take my shadows up right there, it just already, I mean, I probably could just leave it at that, but you could take the blacks down and make it a little richer again. Highlights down and whites up. You want very small, subtle things here, mostly with the shadow up, just to add a little light to that area. And again, you can maybe add a little texture because that's really fine, crispy stuff. If you wanted to make it stand out more, just up to you. And if you feel like you need more, you can go in and add more. You feel like you got too much, you can take the eraser in and the flow tool, your flow down, and you can take just a little bit out. Um, so if I hit the erase and I have my flow turned down, and if I think I just want a little less right around there, I could. It's so subtle you don't notice it extreme. But there you have that. And like I said, if I took the flow down, you would have noticed it more than what I did. But I was very subtle with it anyway going in. So there's that. And now we will go over into Photoshop so you can see where to find the stuff there. I've got this little image opened. I've already made a background copy. And I know you can't see it. I don't know why it's not showing up, but you're going to go up to the top, your very top thing, and where you have file, edit, and all that. And you're going to pick filter, and you're going to come down and you're going to click camera raw. Even though camera raw is showing as the very first one, I don't want to click that one because that's just going to do whatever I did on my last image that I used camera raw on. I'm going to come down to camera raw filter just a little ways down the box. It's going to open um, a new screen for me. This is one reason I like it in the Lightroom too, because it's all right there. I don't have to go into a screen, out of a screen. And to start this, we're going to go ahead and do a split screen again so you can see left being our reference, right is the one we're working on. And we are going to take highlights down. If you don't see it, look for these and click on the basic. And highlights down, somewhere around the 80s maybe. Shadows up about the same. Whites maybe, anywhere from 19, 20, somewhere around there. I've done it so many times, I kind of have an idea, but sometimes you have to look and you may want more or less. And when I do people, I may do a little less because I don't want it so sharp. And then we will look at this. What else can we do? I mean, right there is already improved it enough. If you're happy with that, you don't want to do a lot and you're satisfied with everything. I just want to show you a few other things you can do. So we will go up into our mask tool again and we will select brush. And this time I'm going to make my brush smaller because I'm going to work around the eyes and I want to make sure that the main part, the circle where most of it is within the eye because I want it to feather out the rest of the way. And in this eye, I think I want to add a little clarity. Most of the times when I'm doing live things like people or animals, I want to make sure the eyes are sharp. These eyes are pretty sharp, but this, a little clarity is not going to hurt anything, and you can add if you need it or sharpening. And then I'm going to go in here. I'm already starting to see a little bit of the brown of his iris, which over here it just looks all one big pupil because it's too dark, but we've already got a little bit of it coming out, but let's see if we can bring a little bit more out. So I might bring shadows up. And we might take the blacks down to make sure we keep the blacks all and the dark colors all real nice and solid. And let's see what we get with this. So if I click in here and click here, I saw a little bit happening. And as you can see, you're seeing a little bit more of the brown. If you don't think it's enough, we can go back in. Just want to make sure I get it all. Once you see it's going to move where I do it, I have to watch that if it thinks it's the same thing. So anyway, once we get that in, I can add shadows more. up and see how much I get, just so you can see. I want you to see the difference. Um, but we want everything to be kind of subtle, so we might leave it around there. And let's do a new mask brush. So that other brush disappears, then you can see where you're at. And say I'm looking at this blanket and it's kind of picked up a lot of the orange from him, and maybe it's really more of a white blanket, maybe a little cream color. I don't want so much of that. I may go down to saturation and turn it down. I'll go ahead and turn it down pretty far so I can see where I'm at to start with, because I can always move it, and I can make my brush a little bit bigger, and I can go in here and take that saturation out. If I get close to him, it's not going to hurt too much because I got it feathered so much. And um, like I said, we can using a brush. You always have the erase tool in Lightroom. You see it right here. It's this little thing that looks like an eraser and a line coming out. And I might need to make the brush a little smaller so I can get a little closer. And I can take that down. So now it doesn't look so yellow, but I might want a little bit of the color in there because I might not want it to look totally black and white. So I can go back down to saturation and slide until I get about what I want. And I think there it gives a little color without being too orangey. What else can I do? One other thing I like to do is I'm going to create a new mask on a brush. You can see how this is kind of gray. I didn't get as much light on that part of the background as some of the other. And I might want my background a little lighter. So I could go in with and do the brush and use exposure or whites and do it. But kind of like this little thing down here, dehaze. So I'm going to do dehaze. And if I go in dehaze, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it down quite a bit. And, we can make our brush whatever size we need. And we can go in here. Remember I told you dehaze lighten things. So I can go in here and I do this, and look how much lighter it is. And it also softens the background in case you have any little lines or anything that might be showing up. It might help take some of those out if they're still very subtle. And with that done, I may want to say, well, I kind of, what would it look like if I wanted to make this blanket a little softer around him, so like kind of like, less focus on it, like, you got a little more depth of field, or a little less depth of field, should I say. So I can click another one and just soften it. It's just a matter of what you're going for and what you're wanting. And I could go back down to that dehaze, and I might click around 30 or something, just, and I can go back in here and even go with this more and make it brighter. I can get into the blanket a little bit. And as you do, it's, making those grays softer, making all that edging softer, and it's making, down here it was a little darker, just didn't get as much light. I might hit that. And you can do as much or as little as you want. And like I said, if you get into an area you don't want to get into, like I may be getting into his ears some or something, I can, because I'm using a brush, I can go up here to my brush tool and I can click it. I may turn the flow down because I don't want to do too much, and make my size smaller, maybe even smaller than that. I still want it feathered, and I can go in here and erase any of the dehaze I might have got on some of him that I did not want to. And you can erase out here if you think it's too much. You can add, you can do more than one mask, so you can play with it, or just go back in and do erase and flows, or add. You can do add to a brush and go back in. So there you have it. Thank you, and I hope you got something out of this, and I will answer questions as soon as video stops.